Donald Trump will undertake virtual conversations with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. On Wednesday, the U.S. has confirmed the chat will occur 2 days before Trump meets Russian President Vladimir Putin in Alaska on Friday for what the White House describes as one-on-one talks. According to CNN North America writer Anthony Zurcher, the White House views Trump's meeting with Putin as a listening exercise and aims to minimize expectations. Zelensky thinks the Alaska summit is a personal victory for Putin, but the White House says Trump may visit to Russia for further talks. In other news, U.S. National Guard troops have arrived in Washington, D.C. to combat crime. Meanwhile, Russian President Vladimir Putin has spoken with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un about his planned summit with Trump, as reported by Russian media. According to the Kremlin-affiliated RIA Novosti news agency, the two spoke on the phone, and Putin discussed the summit in Anchorage, Alaska. As a reminder, Russia and North Korea have increased their security relations since the full-scale invasion of Ukraine began. Pyongyang sent troops to fight for Moscow on the front lines. While diplomatic efforts gain traction, intense fighting continues along the front line in eastern Ukraine. The Ukrainian military has discounted rumors of Russian forces making a breakthrough north of Pokrovsk in the Donetsk area at this time in the conflict. Pokrovsk is regarded as one of the most dangerous areas on the front lines. The Ukrainian General Staff denies that Russian forces have encircled Ukrainian units there, but there have been reports of heavy combat. Volodymyr Zelensky has warned that Russia is making preparations for new offensive operations. The Trump administration has dramatically revised and pared back the U.S. government's yearly report on global human rights violations. The paper, formerly regarded as the most extensive analysis of its sort by any government, considerably lessens condemnation of some U.S. allies, like Israel and El Salvador, while increasing criticism of considered foes, such as Brazil and South Africa. Entire chunks of previous year's reports are also removed, significantly decreasing coverage of concerns such as government corruption and persecution of LGBTQ+ people. According to State Department officials, the document has been restructured to remove redundancies and increase readability. The report also states that the human rights situation has worsened in major European democracies, such as the United Kingdom, France, and Germany. The rhetoric used parallels prior criticism by the Trump administration and certain U.S. internet executives who oppose online damage reduction regulations in other European countries, casting them as threats to free expression. During the briefing, Tammy Bruce was asked about the report's reduction and told reporters the Trump administration has proven from day one their commitment to human rights around the world and the quality of people's lives. We will have, in this case, some smaller reports. But I would suggest you watch the actions that are taken by an administration and that commitment to human rights. Tammy Bruce, a U.S. State Department spokeswoman, has just finished speaking with media ahead of Friday's meeting between U.S. President Donald Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin. Here is what we heard. Bruce said Secretary of State Marco Rubio spoke with Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov about the preparations for Friday's summit in Alaska. She stated Russia's Vladimir Putin requested in-person negotiations with President Trump during the news conference. We received shocking news. Ukraine's President Zelensky will hold virtual meetings with Trump and European leaders on Wednesday. Bruce also faced multiple questions on Gaza. She stopped short of calling for an independent probe into Israel's assassination of 6 journalists on Sunday, saying the U.S. is worried about any loss of innocent life when asked if the U.S. is happy with Israel's claims and excuses that it was targeting a journalist tied to Hamas. She said journalists should question Israel's comments. The BBC's Tom Bateman said the vast majority of Israeli attacks were carried out with U.S.-made weaponry, and Bruce interrupted by saying he should not be projecting anything that serious when asked about the U.S.'s position on Israel's proposal to occupy Gaza City. Bruce declined to respond. The White House has confirmed Donald Trump's plans to meet virtually with Volodymyr Zelensky and European allies tomorrow, according to CBS. The BBC's U.S. partner, as previously reported. Zelensky's office also confirmed the meeting to CBS. The call will take place before Trump's meeting with Putin on Friday. The BBC's State Department correspondent Tom Bateman questions Bruce about the death of Palestinian journalists on Sunday, stating that it was one of the worst, if not the worst, single attack on journalists in modern history. Bateman claims that, similar with past events involving journalists slain in Gaza, probably many of them were carried out with American weapons supplied to Israel. Bruce interjects, suggesting he should not be projecting anything that's serious, by saying probably Bateman responds that the vast majority of weaponry used in the war were supplied by the United States, and that there is a strong accountability issue. He then inquires whether there has been any internal process to look into what happened to determine whether the killing of journalists in Gaza was in accordance with the rules of war. Bruce says there are many internal processes, but she won't reveal any more specifics because of the nature of them and the importance of diplomatic work. When asked again if there are internal protocols on this specific instance, Bruce says she won't share it and goes on to explain the Trump administration is trying to stop the conflict. A reporter questions Bruce about the recent executions of Palestinian journalists in Gaza and asks if she will call for an independent investigation into their deaths, accusing Israel of failing to adequately probe previous assassinations of journalists, doctors, and other professions. Bruce takes issue with the notion that Israel has always failed to examine its soldiers' activities, noting that Hamas has employed human shields in hospitals and schools. She refrains from calling for an investigation into the killings, stating that Israel is one of our steadfast allies and that they do investigate. On Sunday, 6 journalists were murdered in Gaza by a targeted Israeli airstrike near the Al-Shifa hospital. One of those slain was Anas al-Sharif, an Al Jazeera correspondent and one of Gaza's last famous journalists. Israel's military claims it targeted Sharif, stating he served as the head of a terrorist cell in Hamas but offers scant evidence. A second reporter, who claims 11 of his colleagues were slain in Gaza, asks Bruce whether she is comfortable with the claims and excuses used by Israel to attack those journalists. The United States is concerned about the loss of any innocent life, Bruce said. She adds she is not in a position to comment on Israel's statements, saying we refer you to Israel. She acknowledges that several of the assembled reporters have covered battles before. She says that Secretary of State Marco Rubio is determined to bringing the war to a conclusion. The Committee to Protect Journalists reports that at least 186 journalists have been murdered in Israel's war in Gaza since October 2023 in relation to Trump's planned one-on-one with Russian President Vladimir Putin. State Department spokeswoman Tammy Bruce notes that Trump has already met alone with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. She claims Trump is doing everything he can to halt the war. According to Bruce, Vladimir Putin was the first to bring up the potential of in-person talks with Trump. She described the meeting as fact-finding in a way and reminds reporters that Trump promised a feel-out meeting. Bruce adds that Trump has agreed to call Zelensky following the meeting before calling European leaders. As a reminder, Trump stated yesterday that after this week's discussions, he would either say lots of luck, keep fighting, or we can make a deal. We have breaking news to share with you while we watch the State Department briefing on Wednesday. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky will engage in virtual conversations with Donald Trump and European leaders. The meeting will take place 2 days before Trump's in-person meetings with Russian President Vladimir Putin in Alaska. Zelensky's office confirmed the meeting to CBS News, the BBC's U.S. partner.